I'm looking good.
When people think about Gran Turismo 2 mods, they think about this mod named Gran Turismo 2 Plus, which, in a way, was the definitive way to play Gran Turismo 2, as it had tons of fixes, balancing changes, and even some quality of life improvements along the way. For a long time, this mod became an essential part when it came to the best way of playing Gran Turismo 2. That being said, a part of the Gran Turismo 2's community did the unthinkable, something that many people in the community said it was impossible, but somehow they did that. They added new cars to the game, which many people thought it would be impossible, but the impossible happened, and this is where Project A-Spec comes in, a mod made by a user named Computer. This mod was released on December 16, 2023, and now that it got totally updated recently with the version 1.2, I think it's time to talk about this mod, and it's one hell of a mod. And today I'll talk about the new cars that have been added and what quality of life improvements have been implemented. So let's talk about it. The main meat and potatoes of Project A-Spec is the number of new cars that have been added to the base game. We have new kits on the block, like the rare Renault Spider, which is a very rare car for Renault, which, as far as I remember, it only appeared in Metropolis Street Racer for the Sega Dreamcast. However, in the demo discs of Gran Turismo 2, it appears, but only in text since there was no car models for these cars. The Lamborghini Diablo JGTC was also intended to appear in GT2, but like the Spider, it only appeared as a string test. Granted, the Diablo JTC car made its appearance in Gran Turismo 3, but only in the Japanese versions. As for the NTSC and PAL versions, they can only be obtainable with cheat codes. However, the car itself is now available in the mod, and the car model looks very gorgeous for a fan-made mod. The Tyson Porsche 911 GT3R also makes an appearance and was used in the Le Mans LMGT Class Championship, which is very cool to see a Porsche car in the game. And yes, we have the rough cars, but having the real Porsche cars is a delightful sight, unofficial or not. You love to see it. Another car that I never knew existed was the Alpine A442B, which was used in the Le Mans Championship of 1976. For a fan-made mod, they look gorgeous, as if they were made by Polyphony Digital themselves, but in actuality, the creators of the mod took a lot of effort to make the models look pretty, and the mod shines in that department. Then we have cars that were created from the ground up, like the Alfa Romeo Shigeru Mitsubishi HSR, which debuted in GT4, the demonic V12 LMR, the Peugeot 905, and the Oxia, the Aston Martin Nimrod C2, which is a very rare car that isn't talked about much these days. It's a car that was used in the Group C tournament in 1984. We do have the Dome Zero, which, similar to the ASR, actually debuted in GT4 as a concept car, the Ford Indigo, which is a car that made its appearance in Need for Speed 2 and the Ford Racing games, most notably in 2 and 3. They also had the Prowler, which also appeared in Test Drive 6 with a goofy car model, of course. They even added cars that I didn't know they existed until now. For example, did you know that existed a prototype version of the Skyline GTR R33? Well, I didn't know that existed, but it's here. This prototype has the front bumper of the R32, but its rear bumper is the R33-1. So, like I said, it's a prototype car. The Ferrari cars also have been added as well. Most GT fans were pleased that the Ferrari cars have been added in GT5 Prologue and GT5. But what if they were added in Gran Turismo 2? Well, it was a dream that became reality. They added the F355 and the F40, though I still wish they would have added the F50 or the 550 Maranello, but hey, at least we got some of the most iconic cars from the car maker. There's even also the C5 Corvette, which I've always wondered why it was never added in GT1 and GT2, since that Corvette was released in the late 90s, but it's here and it looks pretty cool. Besides Ferrari, there are new car makers, like Quaife, Marcos, Caterham, Vision, which is another car maker that I never knew before. How refreshing. Isuzu also makes an appearance with its 2 new cars, like the Bella GTR and the Piazza XE, as well as Penas, but it's sort of disappointing that there's no Esperante or even the Le Mans variant of it. Instead, it has the Roadster. Oh well, we can't win all the time, right? In addition to this, there are lots of Le Mans cars. The BMW V12 LMR, the 905, McLaren F1, the 787B, and many others, making the Le Mans/Group C roster more palatable and interesting. There are tons and tons of obscure and new cars to talk about, but we would have been wasting 1 hour talking about them. It doesn't end there though. There have been tons of model updates for the base car roster of GT2, ranging from new colors, restored logos, or even body modifications, which is very neat. The mod also altered the events as well, especially on the Gran Turismo League part. The harder races from the National League now require a higher tier license, not to mention that these races are longer, now ranging from 3 to 5 laps. Also, the AI in this mod is much more ferocious and faster. Like, I remember racing around the wagon events in the Rome circuit. I was using the Tyson Porsche 911 GT3R, and sometimes one of my opponents was almost as powerful as I, and he almost tried to overtake me in some parts of the track. That should tell you that this time around, the AI is not fucking around. Another thing that I like in this mod is that there are more starter cars at your disposal. For instance, you can now buy the Peugeot 106, Volkswagen New Beetle, Citroën Saxo, Dodge Neon, or the Opel or Vauxhall Corsa for less than 10k. I found it always bizarre in the vanilla GT2 that the only starters were the Japanese ones, apart from that shitty Fiat 500, but let's not talk about it. Which, I get it, GT2 was a Japanese game made by Japanese developers and JDM cars back then were the real shit. But even so, it's still pretty neat to see starter cars that are not Japanese to give the early game more variety. Also, the new Beetle is the GOAT when it comes to starter cars, since if you win one of the K-Car events as well as the new Beetle event, you can hit your 10k back and make some neat upgrades that can help you win the Sunday Cup and other easy events. Oh, did I mention that there are new events? The Like the Wind event and the Reynolds Spider event, which is nice as these were made using unused events from the base game, and new original events like the Formula 1 car events and even a Supercar Festival event, which is epic. All the new cars control pretty well and they are fun to drive. The F1 cars are kind of hard, but you'll get used to it after a few laps of practice. Speaking of events, there are more prize cars, which is good, and most of them are placed in the national events. These prize cars consist of most Le Mans cars or even obscure cars that you've never seen before, like the GM EV1, which is a car that I've never seen until now. Also, remember when you had to go to a certain manufacturer to tune a car from that car dealer? Well, no more. Since there's a universal tune shop for every car, you don't even need to go to a specific dealer to upgrade a car from that maker. Oh, you can also change the rims of your cars, which I don't remember if this was a thing in the original GT2, but it's totally tubular to see this, and you can buy tuned cars as well, though some brands are locked or not available. Probably the cars haven't been made, so who knows. As for the soundtrack, it's also different. We have my favorite game from the Cardigans, which also appear in the intro of GT2, which is neat. Still wish that the song would appear during the races in the vanilla version of it. Insomnia from Feeder, On a Plane from Nirvana, and Feel from Metallica. It's good, though I still miss the vanilla soundtrack from GT2. If you want to use this mod, there are some requirements. For example, you need to make sure that your GT2 copy is the US version, more specifically the Simulation Dix 1.2, given that it's the most stable version of the game. Don't even try to use the Japanese nor the PAL versions of the game, since they will not work for this mod at all. Next up, you also need to use the X-Delta UI to patch the game. You need the X-Delta file, that being the mod, and the Simulation Disk NTSC 1.2. The process is very easy. After that, just fire DuckStation and load the game and you're good to go. Now, you guys might be thinking, does this work on real hardware? And the answer is, yeah, it does work. But I still recommended using DuckStation for many reasons. Number one, you can overclock the CPU and use the 60 FPS patch for the game, and that in and of itself totally outclasses the real hardware experience. Another thing that it should be worth mentioning is that, does this mod also work on the arcade disc? Well, the answer is not really. At this point, the mod doesn't support the arcade disc, since it will crash a lot and some of the cars will go missing. Overall, I feel like Project A-Spec is what would have happened if GT2 had some sort of DLC. It has some of the most exotic cars in existence, and the fan service is huge with this one. The fact we have a fucking V12 LMR, Ferraris, F1 cars, obscure cars that we never heard before, as well as the Lamborghini Diablo JGTC in a PS1 game no less, is a dream come true. Not to mention that they feel great driving them and they look great. The changes to the events as well as the AI made the game much harder than ever before, but not unfair, and the quality of life improvements that this mod offers are pretty neat. I definitely recommend it to GT fans who want more of a refreshing experience, and I would like to thank Computer, HW Tsuya Nathan, and Tayo for the creation of this amazing mod. This may be a small step for modding as a whole, but a huge step for the Gran Turismo community. Thanks for watching everyone, and as always, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more content. And in the comments below, what do you think about this mod? Is it pretty good? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments below. And that is all folks, see you next time.